so we're gonna start and say hi to two people you don't know, and if you're online, send a direct chat to two people. Ready? And 30 seconds. Say hi to someone you don't know. Hopefully y'all take this energy with you to the voting polls, right? Who's already voted so far? Yeah? Thank you. Cool. Thank you. I got my sticker in my purse. I'm sorry. I did vote though. I promise I did. Okay, so just a reminder, anything that you say will be heard through the speakers. It's recorded, goes on YouTube, whether you like it or not. So I'm super excited today. Erica and I get to co-host together, right? Mike's out of town, he's at NAR. So let's talk about our perspective. We are a training, coaching, consulting, and technology company creating the culture and community where entrepreneurs thrive. And what we're going to start doing every week is popping up our mission, vision, value, beliefs, and perspectives. So if you walk through our hallways, you've probably seen our beliefs with the win-win, no deal, integrity all through the hallways. So you'll be able to see a little bit of that. And then Mike had highlighted our associates should be treated like stakeholders. Profit matters. Stakeholder companies always measure profit or loss, open the books, and tell the truth. Who you are in business with does really matter. No transaction is worth our reputation.
One thing was really cool. Shane and I met this morning, and I think it's so important on that transparency aspect of that stakeholder companies always measure profit or loss, open the books, and tell the truth. How many of us are okay to share our stories with people on our team? Right? And if you're not, we need to align back with this value. And I really appreciated that this morning, Shane. It just is a constant reminder that there should be no secrets, right? And that's who you work for with Keller.
Okay, so let's start with our vendors. We'll start over here. Kevin, let's start with you.
Sure. Kevin Kohler, Allstate Insurance, I'll provide property casualty needs. We just dropped a 5% rate reduction on our autos, which is for non-homes because we bundle. We have great discounts, and again, about 65% of the time when I'm being shopped, we have some of the best home rates. So please feel free to take advantage of our home rates.
Awesome, thank you. Cole.
Good morning, Cole Keelan, USA Mortgage. Just some words of encouragement. I just read a statistic that said in the month of November during elections, real estate activity is down 15%, but this year even more so. So if you're a little bit slower, I'm sure a lot of us are, including myself. Don't give up.
Well, thank you, Derek.
All right, Derek Cheney, home loan expert in the Missouri Bank, community located right across the parking lot here, and here for all of your home loan needs. And don't forget to vote today.
Yeah, thank you. Cindy and Christy.
Hi, I'm Cindy. Christy.
With Great American Title, we're your GAT girls, home of the boring closing, where nothing exciting happens except it gets closed.
Carl McDougall, Ducks on Home Inspection, for all your home inspection needs. Quick story, real quick. Home inspectors, not very good as a business person. I talk clients out of a lot of my services that I don't think they need. So integrity, working with Derek on one yesterday. But integrity, when you're hiring a home inspector, make sure they got some integrity behind them, looking out for our clients together mutually. Thank you.
Here, I saw the announcement, but do you wish to tell us all what you've been keeping?
I've been dying.
Hi. Garrett with Meridian Title. Yeah, so if you saw, we put out a press release on Friday. It's a lot of words, but basically it goes into what we've been doing, what we've been developing. There'll be a lot more information that will start to come out, and it's kind of a phased process. We'll launch some of it on December 1st. The biggest thing for you guys to kind of know and understand as you kind of see what we put out, there's several different products, 4 to be exact. But basically, we have developed our own AI, large language model, and data pool centers. So we will be able to take AI and use it to speed up the entire process, make it more efficient, make it easier on our staff, easier on you guys, quicker, and just overall better experience. We also developed our own version of Qualia Connect, which is what we currently use as our customer-facing portal. We've developed our own. We've taken all the best parts of what Connect was and all the worst parts and left them out. We've developed our own. So we'll be training on that and pushing that out in the next couple of months. And realistically, eventually there'll be chat features. So you'll be able to interact with your files like you've never been able to before. You can go in and ask it questions and get instant answers like that. So it's really, really cool. And there'll be tons of more information coming out about it in the next couple of weeks. We've got a video that should come out today that will be kind of a cool kind of intro to everything. So be on the lookout for that. So, and then we'll be training. So
Thank you.
cool.
Awesome.
ChatGPT, better watch out. Here you come.
Jess.
Hey, everyone. Jess Bowman, Bowman Insurance Group. We're just here to build a relationship with your clients and be a part of your team. Anything we can do to help you guys get deals closed on the insurance side, we are just happy to help. And we appreciate you guys.
Thank you all. Okay, perfect. So as we go through, we're gonna talk about our mission moment, the Vendy. We don't have the, okay, there we go. Garrett, awesome. Do you wanna let us know who you're passing the Vendy on to?
Sure. Well, I was excited to get this. Thank you. So I'm gonna give this week's award to Cole Keeley.
Congratulations.
He is an awesome vendor. He works really hard on your guys's files, and I know that he goes above and beyond. He's a good friend of mine too. So
Congratulations, Cole. And then as we transition to our Steffes Award, last week's winners were Amy Malaya Coppins and Carrie Tennis. Who is this week's winner, Erica?
So first of all, it was an honor to have received the Steffes Award. It means so much to both of them. Culture at KW is what makes us special. We are surrounded by so many amazing people who will selflessly help others. When we think of the epitome of the Steffes Award, we cannot help but gravitate to the Fisher team. Brian and Jesse are always willing to go above and beyond to help everyone. Thank you for being amazing.
Okay, so just like what we do every week, if they're not here, we're gonna let them know. So I think we should text Brian. I think that would be the best reaction, right? Brian would love all these messages. His phone number is 417-599-0261. 417-599-0261. If you'd also like to text Jessie, her phone number is 910-257-2929. 910-257-2929. Congratulations to the Fishers. That's super exciting. Awesome. Okay, Megan, what do we need to know from Onward?
Hi, everyone. I am Megan with Onward Agent Services. We currently are offering transaction coordinating for under contract to close, as well as any new listings you have. We also have sign running and lockbox drop off, as well as some marketing services with newsletters, social media, and then Katya does some newsletter packages. So if you have any questions, feel free to come visit us in the leadership office.
And here are some of Katya's marketing packages. So if you are interested in revamping your marketing, here is the option for you. Next, we have our broker moment, but I don't see either broker in the room.
Must mean everybody behaved.
Yeah, yeah, right? That's exactly what it is. So the good thing is, as we're going through, a reminder, if you did not do your code of ethics renewal during your CE, you will need to do that by the end of the year. So that is the one thing that if you did not renew your code of ethics, because that's every 3 years, it doesn't align with the CE, you'll need to renew that. So Nicole, I'm sure, will be getting contact information to you. And how cool is their new headshots, right? Updated and better, yeah. Okay, remember TCPA, do not call people you're not supposed to. Make sure you're checking the do not call list on that side. So let's look at how's the market. So when we look at this week, we had 12 homes that went pending in 1 day or less, which is actually up because last week we had 7. When we look at SOMO, GSVOR, East counties and North counties, we can see that a lot of the numbers have been going down. Some have been going up. So in SOMO, new listings were down, new contracts were down, but the closings actually went up. Same way with GSVOR on that side of it as well. And when we're looking at it, New listings from last week, there was 322 in SOMO, and the week before it was 376. But closings, 277 this past week, 183 the year before. Where's that beeping sound coming from? And then when we look at last year, how many homes went pending in 1 day or less? 27 compared to the 12 that we had. Then as we're transitioning over to the active listings, right now, we're at 2,144 active listings. This time last year, we were at 1,583. And what we like to do as a market center, we always like to correlate looking at 2019 numbers from where we're looking at our data. In 2019, active listings was 2,155. So we only have 11 difference from us in 2019. So if you're looking at your numbers, a great way would be looking at your multi-year trends, especially if you've been in the business since 2019. I'd be interested to hear from all of you if you see those correlation in those numbers. But as a market center, that's what we're always using right now as our base point of what we're expecting, especially when we're doing budgeting and forecasting going into the next year. 2019 has been our guiding number for that. Nicole, what do we need to know from you from tech? Also, can we all give Nicole a round of applause? Because this last week has been
Thank you. Yes, so password resets and security and all of that. Please, 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 if you're still having issues or if you have any questions on it, please let me know. I'm here to help. I have a bunch of different workarounds, and I do believe that our regular forgot password and resetting is working properly. But if you're not getting a recovery email, please let me know so that I can check it and make sure that we have the correct one for you. But yeah, nothing crazy in tech world right now, just password resets. Go vote.
Thank you, Nicole. So we have a luxury home tour and training coming up on the 12th of this month. So Susan Heron is the one kind of spearheading this, but 11 to 12:30. Join us after team meeting and they'll do 3 home tours, and here's all the address to know. And thank you, Adam and team, for letting us use your listings to go through and tour all of those. So if you are interested in luxury, or maybe you're looking at advancing your price point in the luxury side of it, this would be a great opportunity to start learning about different features and the conversations that you need to have in the luxury market. Thanksgiving potluck. I'm so excited. How many of you are excited for Thanksgiving potluck? Yeah? Okay, so for those of you that don't know, we'll have Thanksgiving potluck right down here in the training center. So we'll put all the tables together like family style. We'll have food and buffet style. The market center will provide the meat. We're asking that you please bring a side. Nicole has a sign-up sheet for that. But we'll be down here in the training center, and it's just a fun way to be able to get have lunch, break bread around with our fellow Keller Williams
What's your
agents.
favorite Thanksgiving side dish?
Oh, mashed potatoes, easily. I'm a carb girl. Mashed potatoes or mac and cheese.
Oh, I was gonna say mac and cheese.
I could not. I don't really care about the meat side of it. Just give me the carbs and the rolls. So you'll probably see me taking a nap upstairs shortly after, honestly. Okay, so we have our calendar out for November. As you can see, we are finishing up Ignite. On Friday, we do have our Ignite graduation. So if any of you are in the building and would like to come down and celebrate from 2 to 3, we'll be right down here in the training center. As always, we have our Friday wealth building going on. Next week, we do have some buyers and seller agency contracts, command lead to close with Landon. Something to point out. The Sunday, the 17th through the 19th, this is the Greater Heartland Summit. So the Greater Heartland Summit is like a mini mega camp that our region is putting on. So we'll have panels, whether it be over social media, listings, buyers, value proposition. We'll have a market update given to us by our regional operating partner and our regional director. So similar to what you see at Family Reunion Mega Camp of Gary giving an onstage market update, we'll have that. The Sunday night is more of a cocktail evening, so you don't have to really worry about traveling there. But then Monday will be a full day, and then Tuesday is a partial day on that. So we will not have team meeting on the 19th for you. Really encourage you to sign up and participate. I think right now we have about 15 to 20 agents from our office, about 150 regionally that are attending for that. And this would be a great way to build your referral network too.
I want to go to that.
Hello, welcome.
Definitely see you there.
Then the 21st ALC meeting. So we are test running a new format for our ALC meeting. I'd really encourage you all to be there. The next 2 meetings, we are going to have masterminds. So our ALC members will be masterminding over market topics or anything specific that they're bringing to the table. And so if you want to hear what those conversations are, or maybe able to give a couple of different conversation pieces to bring back to your clients, please come and join us. It'll start at 8 a.m. It'll run till roughly 9:30. And you'll hear some of those conversations that are happening. And then last but not least, we'll be closed for Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday following. And then we have a new director of First Impressions. Have
She's
you?
here.
Yeah.
Come on.
Jackie, you want to come up here? This is Jackie Flores. She is our new director of First Impressions. She's the new smiling face you'll see at the front desk whenever you walk in. So if you have not had the chance to introduce yourself, please go up and introduce yourself and say hi, and she'd be happy to meet you. We're so excited that you're here, Jackie. Thank you. Green bean casserole.
Okay.
Here, another one for the carbs. Here we go. What is yours?
Ooh, mac and cheese.
Okay.
Yeah.
I consider myself a mac and cheese connoisseur.
Oh.
Q39 in Kansas City, some of the best mac and cheese I've ever had. If you haven't been there, try it out. And just bring me back some, please. Okay. So as you can tell, we have our wonderful Christmas backdrop up. So if you would like to host, yes, see our lovely models. Thank you, our models. Woohoo! So
Always
if
a
you
cup.
are looking
Always
at
a cup.
hosting a client event, this would be a great way. If you have a Santa connection of some sort, feel free to rent out the
We do
training
have a
center.
Santa connection.
Oh, we
There's
do?
an agent that goes here and her husband is a certified Santa.
What?
I-
The certification process.
There is. She went through the whole thing and we will get that out to you. I promise.
Okay.
Sarah went this.
Oh, Nathan.
Yeah.
Nathan. Makes sense with the beard. Yeah.
But he's certified. He'll be at the mall. He can come here. So
What makes you certified?
he went to a class in Kansas City.
What? Do they just drink like milk and cookies or like? how do you-
I have not interviewed him, but I can say that. We can find out.
Coincidence, well, I'm a certified
Okay, well, we'll have to figure out the certification process.
But yeah, Sarah Winfield, she's one of our KW agents, her husband.
Okay, maybe instead of CE next couple years, we can do a Santa certification.
There we
So the Greater Heartland Summit, just like what we had talked about, here's the schedule of events for you all to know. If you have any questions on registration, please see Landon. He's kind of spearheading all of that. But Monday is really panels and the market update. And then Tuesdays is going to be mastermind focus in the afternoon.
And they can go for free.
Yeah, yes. You want to tell them how?
Yeah, if you want to go for free and you bring us a non-Keller Williams agent that's done more than 7 transactions this year, we will buy your ticket and their ticket. So just come see me or Mike upstairs and we would love to get you hooked up.
Tell me why we have that offer.
I think it's really important, and again, back to our conversation, but so that people understand the value and the trainings that Keller has that maybe they're not used to having. Last night during the Chiefs game, it's a true story. I'm all locked in and my phone is ringing because another Keller Williams agent was talking to a non-Keller Williams agent and they didn't have the data to know where they were falling, and they're a pretty competitive agent of where they were falling in the top 100, I think is what it was.
And none of
so-
you can resonate, right? None of you are competitive in this room. Yeah, I didn't think so.
So it's, second quarter, my phone's ringing, my husband's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I have to take this call. So I take the call, true story. This guy now wants to come over here just to get the data that only Keller Williams has to offer of where he's falling because he's a super competitive agent. So I think going back to Greater Heartland, going back to these things, when you bring another agent that's not maybe from our culture, but you feel like would be a great culture fit, we might be able to add value to them where they might not choose Keller Williams today, but it's going to be their first resource when they get to that point when they know they absolutely need to advance their business. And so we want to be that resource for them, no matter what training it is.
One of the really cool things, so Erica hit her 90-day yesterday, so she's been with the family for 90 days. And we've had a lot of conversations, and when we talk about data, she's gained a lot of data and feedback from agents with inside of our company that have had the opportunity to meet her and agents outside. And what has been the number one piece that most agents feel like Keller Williams provides the most?
The training.
The
I mean,
training.
without question, it seems like every agent, if I've talked to the ones that are thriving and doing incredibly well, or the ones that just got started, or maybe they've hit a financial struggle or a family struggle, there is something at Keller each month, each week that applies to them specifically where they're at. We meet people where they're at. And I think that's the value that they're getting, no matter where you're at in your business, that there is something that's going to propel you to that next level. And so whether, you are sitting next to the person that helped you get to that class or you know them, make sure you text them and encourage them, because each of us are at different places in our journey. And as I was meeting each agent loves to talk. And that's been amazing. I just listen and listen and listen, but you hear the heart of an agent, and all of you took a big chance on yourselves to kind of invest in yourselves and take this huge leap into being an entrepreneur. And it's been absolutely beautiful to hear that when they needed that extra training, that training was available for them.
Is that Curtis? Just had to go.
Totally. I would put
I can
money
hear
down.
whistling. One of the cool things as Erica has talked about, and we're talking about training, is at a market center, sometimes I hear, oh, y'all are having way too much training. Well, that is our job, to make sure you're fully equipped. Now, what I encourage you to do though is come and listen to an ALC meeting. You can hear the trainings of the things that they've learned to actually go do the work. And so it's taking the balance of, here's all this training and education, how do I know how to put it into practice, or when does it happen? Where you get to hear our top agents have these conversations of how they're applying it into their business. Or maybe they were on a training and they heard some sort of conversation, or this is a connecting point you can use with your clients. You take that and run with it. That's the best part about Keller Williams. It's like, there's no secret sauce. It's all about building relationships and having conversations. And yet, sometimes you need to just change your message just a little bit so you can match your client a little bit better. And so coming to an ALC member and hearing those conversations, what happens in the ALC room, will give you so much more valuable resource for
Well, and
that.
I think it's relative, right? We're all facing very similar challenges in this market. And so to hear some of, the people you respect in the room going through the exact same, a buyer just won't pull the trigger, a buyer just won't pull the trigger. And you're hearing from real life people having just experienced that, somebody you look up to, it gives that relative experience that we're all in this together, I think.
That's what I took from the ALC clinic. It allows you to create a human element.
Yeah.
It allows you to relate, just like you had said. So if you're producing 10 transactions and you hear the same struggle of someone that's producing 100, you're like, okay, I don't feel crazy. I'm not alone. I actually feel like I know what I'm doing. It's just a little different. And so you get to hear the different conversations that happen.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
great. So tell us about what you, Paulina, and Lala have created.
Yeah, so this is our Fresh Faces party. So how many of you in this room have joined Keller in the last 2 years? Anybody? So quite a few. That's pretty exciting. So how many of you have been with Keller for more than 5 years? Can you list every single person who has joined us in the last 2 years? Then you are the perfect person to come to this Fresh Faces party, okay? So I want you to come. Lala, Paulina, and I have come together. We just think it'd be a great time. There's no training element. It's just to get to know the people that you get to brush shoulders with. So it's the Fresh Faces party. It's going to be down here. We have 3 incredible vendors that are sponsoring some food and drinks. And it should be a good time, just a quick happy hour to come see the fresh faces.
We're gonna have it here at the Market Center because our hope is that maybe some of the people that have joined Keller Williams haven't really walked through the building a lot. So we'll be giving tours as well. So if you're in your office and you see us walk by between 4 and 5, please come out and introduce yourself and really just let them know who you are and who you're in the building with.
Yeah.
So, exciting.
Perfect.
Lala, anything else we need to add?
No, get ready to play bingo, I guess. Have a bingo.
Ooh, I love games.
I know, get ready.
Will you come dressed as Joy? Because I feel like that will really make my.
Encourage that.
No, Anger says no? Okay.
And so Secret Santa is coming. So we are bringing Secret Santa back to the Market Center. I know, how exciting. The only ask is if you're gonna participate in Secret Santa and you sign up, you also bring your gift because someone else is gonna rely on you to be their Secret Santa too. Had a couple of logistics of those mess up. So Secret Santa is coming back, so we'll get that started here soon. The holiday party, mark your calendars, December 20th at 6 o'clock, the Old Glass Place. We will have our holiday party again. Nicole will give a registration link and we'll send that out. The best way to get all of these links is your KW in the Know email that comes out every Friday like clockwork. So if you're always wondering, where's the link? Where can I find that? Check KW in the Know. It's gonna be there for you. So we have these 2 events coming up. And as we're looking at our Q4 team meetings, here we are. Today we have Adam and Carrie, and then we'll continue the rest of our shift tactics. You'll see a couple of the days we won't have because of holiday and Greater Heartland Summit. And then we'll finish out the end of the year. And we're excited what we're gonna have for next year.
Yeah, I think it's so important in every market. So how many of you have enjoyed learning from the ALC the last couple of weeks? It's been awesome. I'm the only one? Okay, got it. So one of the quotes Adam sent me last night that's straight from the book, but I feel like is so relative to every person in this room. In every shift, there are 2 markets. One where properties are priced to sell and another where properties are priced to sit. A seller is either in the market or out of it. And unlike a seller's market where time on the market can pull overpriced homes back into the market after a downshift, every day just pushes an overpriced home further and further out of the market. So today we're gonna hear from Carrie and Adam, and they're gonna talk through the buyer and the seller side. Will you guys welcome them?
Combined slide, so. No, need slides? Yep. What do you need? Move this out of the way?
Grab stools and sit there, is that okay?
Yeah.
Your call.
Whatever.
So how many people know what months of supply we have right now currently in the market?
Oh, come on, somebody.
Let's go. This is interactive.
4.3.
2.3, okay?
4.3 in Foresight. I know that's random, but I just.
I mean, that's your market.
It was 3.3 last year, this time.
Do you know what the market was in 2020?
In.
The very beginning.
It was 1 point something.
No, it was the same. The very beginning before COVID, it was the same. And then COVID happened and everything completely changed. All the inventory completely changed and all the absorption completely changed. But I think that's really good to be touching on 2019, 2017, 2018. But so I did GSBOR and we're at 3.07. And if you don't know how to figure out what the months of supply is, come find me, I'll show you the formula. So it's always good to know, just so that you can go in and start telling your sellers where we are, because that's the whole point, is educating our clients, right?
And I think that's a superpower that you have to outwork all the rest of the industry, is to have the knowledge that they don't have, right? Because you're constantly educating yourself and you're staying ahead of the curve and then relaying the information back to your clients. Like, if your client knew that we have 3 months of inventory, would they make a different decision right now? Maybe, right? But it's your job to educate them. In the red book, Gary says to be the economist of choice. And what he means by that is that you're able to interpret that data and give it to your customer. And you're constantly going back and getting fresh new data and giving it to your customer. And what we learned is that if we give great information to our customers, they make great decisions, right? How often do we get frustrated because the seller makes a poor choice? And it's our job. Like, you got to point the finger back at yourself because you didn't give them great data. Because I'm confident if they had the right data, they would make the great choice. And so we have to constantly be looking at ourselves and learning from that. I just had a situation with an orthodontist in a really poor decision he was making on because he didn't like the buyer, but we had a full price offer, right? And I asked him, hey, when one of your patients is making a bad decision, how do you handle it? Right? So that he could sit and reflect on how I was trying to communicate to him, because it went like me versus him and it shouldn't have been, right? So it's really just going back and slowing the process down, looking at everything that he was competing with, and then showing him, hey, this is a really great offer. I know you're a little bit nervous about the buyer, but let's talk about that outside of what these terms are. And it was a really effective conversation. So I'm talking about Shift Tactics 7, pricing ahead of the market. And in most of Shift Tactics 7, if you guys are familiar with it, actually, let me stop real quick. Who has a shift book? Who doesn't have a shift book? 2. Thank you. We go hand those out.
Who raised their hand?
So Shift Tactics 7, those are on me. I want you to take them and read them. But Shift Tactics 7 talks about pricing ahead of the market. And the majority of the literature in there talks about being in a really strong buyer's market, because this is when Shift was written, was in 2008. And we were in a really strong buyer's market nationally. And so I've tried to adjust some of the data in here just to talk about a shifting market, which I think we're in right now. We really don't know if we're going backwards or forwards yet. And I think until we get like the end of the Q4 data, we'll be able to finally see kind of where we're at. I'm tired of the excuse of the election. I'm hoping today really kind of opens things up for us. So,
But if you look at like NAR statistics, like we are seeing the least amount of home sales per year nationally than we've seen in like 30 years.
1995.
So even in 2008, we had way more sales, and that's what everybody is always kind of looking at this data.
And so the national data, it looks like we're going to fall just shy of 4 million units nationally. And the last time we were at that pace was 1995. The interesting thing is that locally, we're not seeing it reflective of the pricing yet. Right? And so we're at a real advantage right now where if we can price it correctly, it's still moving. You know, we're not starting to see a downward trend yet. So this is Gary Keller. When the perspective shifts towards a buyer's market and listings sit, don't let that happen to your sellers. Where there are 3 factors to getting your home sold: location, price, and condition. Only 2 are under your control: pricing and condition. I think Drew Beatty is going to talk about condition next week. So as an agent, your job is to deliver the 1-2 punch to get your listing sold for the most money in the shortest amount of time possible. Price correctly and stage effectively. So pricing is vitally important in a shifting market. Without correct pricing to attract buyers to the property, you'll never have a chance to show off the location and condition. And here's 5 things we're going to go over. In a shifting market, real estate becomes a commodity, and the only defining feature of a commodity is its price. So think about that, right? And your opportunity to go out and present your property to the market is to be really putting your best foot forward for your client and educating them up front about how that's going to be the second they hit MLS, right? What are they going to be competing with? What are the other similar properties? If a buyer gets in their car on Saturday morning and goes out and looks in their area, what else are they going to see? And how are you going to compare? So only properties in good condition and priced right will sell in a buyer's market. And I love this, number 3. Price can correct bad condition, but condition won't ever affect a bad price. Right? And so we talk about, I see it on like the GSBOR thread all the time. What's the matter with this house? Give me feedback, right? Well, I hate the front door color, right? I dislike the red wallpaper in the dining room, right? Those things might make it more marketable, but they aren't going to increase the price, right? And you've got to price yourself ahead of the market in order to sell quickly.
And can I just jump in and say that there's a lot of people that have had their license in the past, 5 years or under or whatever. You have been trained that price doesn't matter, right? You can go in and you can say, Mr. Seller, what do you want to put it on the market for? And it's going to sell for $20,000 over. That's not it anymore. You have to be the professional. You have to show them the data. Mr. Seller, the amazing thing right now is that look at all these other houses. They've already, checked out what the market's doing, what the MLS is doing. We need to price in front of it, right? We need to be having those conversations instead of just whatever you want to do, right? That's what everybody's been trained to do.
So Carrie calls this a professionals market, right? And what she means by that is that if you aren't able to interpret the data and give it to your client, like your competitor is going to pass right by you, right? If you're an order taker, which is what we all were trained to do the last 5 years or so, right? We were in, Gary calls it in a market of more, right? We were just spending more time on the market, more time servicing our clients. And in a shift, it's still a market of more, but we have to spend more time lead generating, right? And more time servicing our clients to get them to transact. And so, we talked about at the beginning of the tale of 2 markets, and that's Gary's 80-20 rule, is that 80% of the market is sitting, right? And 20% of it is what's moving because of their price correctly. So if you don't like, if you don't like lead generation, you're going to get caught in the right now. So it's really going back and stopping the activities that you've done for the last 5 years, which is order taking, right? What do you want to offer on this house? What would you like to list this house for, right? And going into a consultative dialogue and asking them more questions. Why? Where did you come up with that information? Why is that important to you? Would you take a moment and sit and look at the data that I brought you today and see if that changes your opinion, right? Look at the active data so that they can take time to stop and see who they're going to be competing against with, because most of them made the decision 6 months prior to actually go on the market, right? And it usually takes about a 180-day life cycle to actually get on the market from the first time they thought about selling. And so what did the market look like 6 months ago? We were at 2.6 months, 2.5 months of inventory, right? And if you can educate them that, hey, we're now at 3.1 months, right? Where do you think we're going to be 6 months from now, right? It might change their perspective enough to get them to do what they need to do to get the house sold in this market.
Well, and if you don't know that data and you can't explain that to them, you're dealing with people who have lived in their house for 30 years, for 40 years, for 10 years, right? They don't understand what that is. And they constantly are thinking that all of that market is still in the rearview mirror. So you really have to be the person that's showing them what's happening true right now and what the data is right now. Does that make sense?
This is a Gary quote, and this is my very favorite on page 135. He says, "The ability to learn faster than your competitors may be the only sustainable competitive advantage." How awesome is that, right? I'm gonna read it again. "The ability to learn faster than your competitors may be the only sustainable competitive advantage." So what are we doing as an industry to continually educate ourselves every day, right? Like, how many agents are in here versus vendors, right? We have 460 agents in here. Look who showed up today, right? How are you bettering yourself? What classes are you going to? Are you looking at the data that she was going over that Mike Brown sends out every Monday and adding it to your listing presentation every week? Right? And so if you're not going out and showing them these numbers and educate them, no wonder they're not making great choices, right? So when I talk about a professionals market, I talk about the ability to analyze the MLS. And so your ability to go in there, look at the absorption rate, isolate that to the area, maybe that's the local school district. Maybe it's Forsyth, right? Maybe it's something as simple as Cherokee Middle School, right? And to be able to show them the absorption data in their area so that they know how long it's going to take in order to sell their house, right? Are we looking on the CMA and showing them, hey, this is average days on market, so that we can manage their expectations of how long it's going to take instead of 3 days in calling you in a panic because the house hasn't gotten shown yet, right? Knowing, hey, it's 43 days on the market is the average for your neighborhood, right? We're just on average. And the great thing is if you're hammering that number down and they know that every time, once we get to 43 days, what are they gonna do? They're gonna come to the self-realization that they're out of the market, right? They're in the 80% and they're not priced correctly. And oftentimes they're gonna raise their hand and say, hey, we need to make an adjustment. And all that data will do the heavy lifting for you. So sellers tend to look at what the market was doing and not what it is doing. Again, if their neighbors sold for more money 2 months ago or even 2 years ago, that's the price they expect to get, right? So that's where that education piece comes in. And you'll need to use facts and figures to demonstrate that your finger on the pulse of the market today. So we talk about that instant notification system. I don't know if anybody was at Real Estate Revolution. I was talking about that. So if you are saying, you know, again, you have to define what the neighborhood is going to be. You know, it's not always like Emerald Park or Wicklow, right? So you have to go in and say Forsyth, right? Where that's just to get you enough data, right? Or maybe you'll go to the elementary school or the middle school if it's not a defined neighborhood with a lot of data. And then I'm turning that on for the client, acting like they're a buyer and that they're searching for their home, right? So if I got a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-car garage, 2,500 feet, Cherokee Middle School, right? I'm turning that search parameter on and sending it back to the seller so that they can keep their finger on the pulse of what's happening. And if a new competitor comes on the market, they get an alert, right? I'm not having to do that, but it looks like I am, right? If their neighbor down the street reduces their price, they're gonna get an alert, right? And again, that data will do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So, Gary gave some scripts that I can, maybe I'll email them out just because of the essence of time. But he talks about going fishing, right? And you might have the best boat and the best bait and the best pull, right? But if you're fishing at 10 feet and the fish are at 40 feet, right? You're going to be unsuccessful, right? So it's really talking about pricing and using that analogy with your clients of like, hey, this is a 10-foot price and we need to be at a 40-foot price.
I think the expectation on days on the market is so important because if you are talking about what's happening in Springfield and he's using a micro neighborhood area and your listing is in Bolivar, you're setting expectations for the completely wrong time frame. So you may be, you know, having the seller call you and hound you and everything else whenever the expectation really should have been 65 days. So it's really like being the expert and knowing your numbers and knowing the data. The data does and the numbers do the heavy lifting.
So closing out, I want to talk about price reductions, all of our favorite thing, right? So who has an overpriced listing right now? Just me? Right? And so what's that dialogue look like when we're talking about reducing the price? And a lot of times we're trying to do that on the phone. And I find that that's most effective to have those tough conversations are in person. Of just saying, hey, I want to stop by really quick and talk to you about what the market's doing. They want to hear from you, right? This is a welcome phone call. And just setting a time to go down and sit with them and just say, hey, in the last 30 days, here's what sold, right? And see maybe potentially if you guys missed a buyer because another home similar to theirs in a similar price range actually sold. Explaining to them like, hey, we've had 9 showings and 2 things are happening. So the buyer's using the same budget that we're priced at, and they're going out and finding a superior property, right? Or they're finding something similar to what we're offering for less. Does that sound right? You guys understand that? So explaining that to the client that that's happening after every single showing so that they understand, hey, we've lost out because it's a pricing problem. And then going back and showing them, hey, here's the pricing bracket for where we need to be to get down to a new audience. I'm watching that every day. And I'm watching it go from you're listed at $299 and you're priced at now at $296. Like you got a heavy conversation, you got a price reduction, probably painful, but it didn't do anything. Like you didn't move the meter. And the problem is when you underprice the price reduction, they're putting the finger back on you. Hey, I did what you asked, right? We're not asking for enough and we're not explaining to them that the price reduction has to get them down to a new pool of people. And so in Springfield, these are kind of rough averages, but we're looking at a $5,000 bracket under 100,000. Right, and a $10,000 bracket up to 200,000, and over 200, we start to go to a $25,000 bracket up to 500. At 500, we're 50,000. Right, so we have to have a $50,000 conversation at 600 grand. That we got to get down to a 550. Right, 575 is still our same audience. Does that make sense? Right, and how often are you driving around? I don't know how. We don't really put people in our cars like we used to, but I used to see my aha was that the wife would be in the front and the husband would be in the back, and I would hand them the paper and she would read it and be like, okay, the next one is 300 grand. Well, no, it's not, it's 298. Right, but that's how they read it, right? And so are we having effective price reduction conversations? Is really what it comes down to. And so who can you go have a conversation with today to create a new market with for your seller? All I got. It's really good.
Do you have a question, Patrick?
Go ahead.
Question, so you're doing pricing really effectively. Are you having the same issues with low appraisals that other realtors are having? Or are you finding you're coming in with the appraiser?
Well, sorry. So tell me a little bit more, like, are you having a lot of low appraisals?
Yeah, I'm not a realtor, but I know we got a lot of fallout in closing because of low appraisals and people can't come in with the money they need to meet in the middle.
Sure.
So I was just curious about what your experience
Currently,
is.
we're not having that issue, you know, we were going through that about a year ago. But we haven't really had a lot of fall through because of appraisal. We've had a ton of fall through. We just had our 75th mutual release as a team. Our highest ever was 61, and we saw 2 months to go. Right, so we've never seen fallout like this. You know,
What's causing that?
so 2 things. The sellers are still operating in a mindset of 12 months ago, right? Maybe 24 months ago, that it doesn't matter, I'll just sell it to the next buyer, right? Buyers, on the other hand, they know houses are way more expensive than what their brother-in-law paid for his house 2 years ago, right? They can see it, right? They can see their interest rates are way higher, right? And that the interest rates haven't come down at all. Their insurance quotes, right? The ones that the lender gave them 6 months ago when they got pre-approved, they're nowhere near what they actually are. Like, I've never seen this before where there's no loyalty from the consumer to the insurance agent. And we're seeing them change sometimes 2 or 3 times before closing. So much so that it's impacting closing. They're waiting for the new insurance binder because they're saving $8, right? But no exaggeration, guys. And so we're seeing a buyer that's trying to extract every single nickel they can out of the transaction. And as an industry, we're young, we've only been in it 5 years or less. We've never had to have a hard conversation around condition, right? Expectation management for what inspections are going to look like, right? And we're getting an order taker, buyer agent that says, Mr. Seller or Mr. Buyer, what would you like to ask for? And he says everything. And they say, okay, right? And as a listing agent, we're getting an inspection notice that says see Exhibit A, right? It's 3 pages long, right? And I get my seller to do 2.5 pages of it, and we still can't hold the deal together because the expectation was that we were going to get everything. Because again, as an industry, we're all at fault. We haven't slowed down the process from the very beginning to say, hey, Mr. Buyer, before we make the offer, let's go walk through this property again. right? Carrie's gonna talk about this, but looking at the cracks in the walls, right? Seeing the cracked sidewalk, noticing, hey, this might be stuff that's indicative of a 1955 house, right? There's nothing scary here. Did you see this? Did you see that? Right? And so when the inspection comes, they're, hey, we covered that. We saw that, right? Those were readily apparent defects that we saw. And instead, the inspector's getting paid $500-600 and he's going to make sure that buyer knows he's worth every nickel. So he's gonna write a 100-page report and make it seem like the house is falling apart. Your client's going to get it at 7 o'clock at night, right? They're gonna read the report, they're gonna stay up all night freaking out, and they're gonna call you 8 AM and say, I want on the contract, right? Because as an industry, we haven't slowed down the process and managed their expectations. On this list side, when we're negotiating the offer with the buyer, we're not telling the seller that there's going to be a second negotiation coming up. So, right, they've asked us to see a net proceed sheet. We've sent it on. They know exactly what they're netting. They're holding on to every nickel because they're talking to their lender about their next purchase, right? And now we're coming in 2 weeks later and saying, hey, you're gonna have to pay another $4,000 in inspections. I'm not doing that. This house is as is. Well, we didn't know that information because as agents, we didn't ask enough questions up front. And so reminding them, hey, as we're negotiating back and forth, right? You know, Sheldon's offered me $275 on my $299. My seller's willing to come down to $290, right? And reminding them, hey, on the second negotiation, we're probably gonna have to spend another 2% to get to the finish line. So you're really gonna counter offer at $284, right, figuratively, right? Because we're gonna have to build that $6,000 in to get to closing and stopping and having that conversation. And when we do that, and we've actually figured that out, like we've redone our Grady net sheets. So when you get that, it shows 2% to get to closing, right? And that's allocated for inspections. So that when we call and we say, hey, it's only $4,000, we're having an exciting conversation because we've saved $2,000 instead of an awful conversation because we have to spend $4,000. Does that make sense? And so it's really our fault, right? And we're this learning curve right now to try to get through the shifting market or try to experience what maybe the new normal. And so I think we'll get there. It's not the lender's fault. It's not the appraiser's fault, right? It's just everybody's fault because we haven't slowed the process down enough to educate buyer and seller.
I think on the buy side, as far as like inspections are concerned and stuff like that, you know, the hard part is setting the expectation, right? So I mean, everything's all about the strategy session. I don't go into the weeds too much about inspections, but when the inspection happens, I'm telling everybody, like, look, we're gonna get a report back and it's gonna be a minimum of 75 pages. If it's under 75 pages, this is a great house, right? I'm setting them up with an expectation that they're going to be getting something that's gonna be super overwhelming. And then I'm not going to, you know, we're not going to have that conversation of everything that needs to be fixed. The other thing too, that a lot of agents are doing that I feel like, you know, it's setting you up for failure is you're leaving their buyer instant notification systems on. You are purposely sending them their competition of look at this house, look at this house, look at this house, so that when they get that inspection, they're like, but look at all these other houses. They're already checked out, right? We've had a situation where someone's been under contract and then they went and looked at other houses. And they were like, well, we went to this open house. Why are you looking at open houses? You're under contract on a house. So, and then the other problem is with these inspections, you know, the agents get so emotional about it. You know, and it's like, I'm just being a fiduciary for what my client wants. This is what my client wants. And I'm not going to be emotional about it. And most of the time it's just an ask. And oftentimes the seller's willing to do those repairs. It's the agent going, they're never going to do that. Well, did you ask them? Right. And so a lot of times it's the agents that's getting in the way and creating a lot of that friction.
And I think to be a true fiduciary, you have to detach yourself from the outcome, right? If you really think about that, like at the listing appointment, right? You're so excited to get a listing, to get a sign out there, right? That you're not being a true consultant to the seller, slowing down the process and showing them, hey, this is the actual price that this property is going to trade at based on this data, right? And instead, what do you want to list the house for, right? Oh, it's going to be so great, right? And you're putting all of this in their head that this is going to be a really amazing process, right? That it's all sunshine and rainbows and we're gonna stick the sign out and we're gonna sell in a couple of days, right? Because we're not slowing down the process and explaining to them upfront. Because we're so attached to the outcome of getting the listing, right? Of getting the sale, of getting the paycheck. We're not stopping and saying, hey, we need to have an honest conversation.
Well, and one more thing about sellers is that when you list a property and you take it at their price and you don't tell them what the expectation is of your price improvements or what that property is going to sell for, and it's been on the market 30 days and 60 days, think about that seller. When they first put it on the market, the house is pristine, everybody's beds are made. 6 weeks later, they're like, I wasn't able to make the beds, you figure it out. 3 months down the road, they're like, I'm not leaving, they can come look at the house. I mean, think about it, put yourself in the perspective of what that emotion is and keep that excitement. So if you're setting their expectations, you're setting yourself up too, right? So moving on to buyers and buyers reluctance, I think that the big thing is that, yes, again, this is all very much about a buyer's market where it is basically buyers trying to time the market. That's a lot of what this is. So I really want to kind of focus on where we are here as a whole. So, if we think about timing the market, how many of you would say right now, I wish I would have bought that property in 2017? How many of you wish you could say, I wish I would have brought all the investment property in 2018, right? So the big thing is making sure that buyers understand that we do not have a crystal ball and we cannot time the market. And I think that as this inventory raises and if the prices start to go down, that's what we start to feel. And so whenever you're meeting with people and you're doing the strategy session and you're having them come and meet with you in person and you're getting your loyalty agreement signed, and so that you know that you have a client that you're actually wants to work with you and you want to work with them, we're asking them, is the deal more important or is the house more important? Right? Because that's what we're going to start getting into. And I feel like we've gotten a little bit of that where people are like, I want a deal, but at the same time, our inventory is a little bit, we've kind of created this perfect storm and then our interest rates are going up, right? So it's really educating our buyers and making them understand where we are in the market and really dialing down right now into motivation. Motivation, motivation, motivation. You cannot make somebody buy a house. You can't make somebody sell a house. And to be honest with you, a lot of our buys and sells, a lot of our sells, they have not been fun this year, right? We're dealing with a ton of probate. We're dealing with a ton of debt, a ton of divorce. The good news about the debt part is that we've had so much appreciation in our market that we can pretty much get anybody out of the market without having to lose money, right? But how many of us that are talking to a ton of buyers are saying, can we get the list of foreclosures, right? Can we get the list of short sales? People are already accelerated thinking that that's happening and the market is appreciated too much. So, as the market goes, what must go up must come down, right? And I think that as we talk to more buyers, we need to basically find out if they're in the market or if they're out of the market. So we need to find out basically what their motivation is, what their timeframes are, and we need to be constantly pre-qualifying them. I think that one mistake that we make is I may meet with a buyer and I think that I've got this great solid buyer that's pre-approved and ready to go, right? They're ready, willing, and able. But am I pre-qualifying them every time I'm in a house with them? How many times have you been with somebody in a house or you reach out to them and you're like checking in, they're like, oh, I signed a 6-month lease. Well, why are we in this house looking at this house? Every single time that you're talking to your buyers, you need to be asking them questions about what's going on with their current situation and making sure that they're still matching the motivation of the market. You don't want to, I want to know, like we classify all of our buyers as A buyers, B buyers, and C buyers. So we want to make sure that we understand, an A buyer is someone who's ready, willing, and able. And a B buyer is someone who's 2 of the 3, and a C buyer is 3 or 1 of the 3, right? It used to be, willing to do whatever it takes, right? Appraisal gaps, no inspections, all the things, right? You throw out all things. So really understanding where that buyer is and then constantly tweaking and adjusting them to either move them forward or move them back. And then deciding how we're following up with them, right? If I meet with Adam and he says, find me the right house, I'll buy it. I'll buy it today. Yeah, I'm pre-approved, but right, he doesn't have any motivation. Does he want me calling him weekly, being like, hey, did you see this? Hey, did you see this? Hey, when can you go? Hey, what's this? Right? What happens? It's annoying, right? They're not going to answer my calls anymore. So really, really understanding your buyer's motivation. I know that I've had conversations with lenders where I'm just like, I just kind of feel like maybe I'm not getting it. Like I'm not really understanding where they are in this market. And so sometimes you need to slow yourself down. And then you need to decide how those nurtures are, right? Are those weekly or are those biweekly? Or are you basically putting them more on a campaign and you realize that they're more 6 months out? So really, really defining what that is.
I think that buyer reluctance is like everybody's experiencing right now. So what questions are you asking them to kind of learn what their motivation looks like?
Well, I mean, I'm finding out their timeframes, you know, what's the reason for their move? It all goes to the strategy session, right? You know, there's appointments that will come and sit down with me, and then the ISA department will say, how is that? And I'll be like, they're 6 months out, you know? So, but then I think reluctance wise, it's a lot of, you know, interest rates and making sure that we understand what their monthly payment is. I don't care if you're approved for $5 million. If you want your payment to be $1,500, then we need to match that, right? Are we asking the right questions to where we understand what makes sense for our buyer? One of the things that I make sure everybody does up front is as soon as they find a house that they're interested in, we are getting their insurance quote, because I have had a couple of deals blow up because of insurance. That's never been a thing for me, right? Finding out their timeframes, I think, is the most important part. And then finding out, like, you know, what's the reason why they're moving, right? I have the 10 Ds of motivation. And so, I mean, death, divorce, debt, diapers, downsides, diamonds, dumpster, desk, which is relocation, degrees, difficulties. So, you know, really, really figuring out what is this move coming from, and then making sure that we're matching their motivation. I think that doing some of the things that we've done as far as, like, you know, turning off their searches whenever they go under contract, that's been really, really helpful. And then staying in big communication with them. You know, if they come at me with a 3-page inspection notice that they've written up or whatever, I'm like, do you even want this house? You know, of those 75 that we've had mutually released, we've still moved them, right? We've still moved them down the road. They've still found the house. We haven't lost all of them. It's just sometimes, you know, it's just sometimes the parents that jump in last minute,
But
or
again, it's reflective of us,
Yeah.
right? Because when those parents do jump in, it's because we didn't slow down in the beginning and say, hey, who are the decision makers here? Right? Oh, well, my dad's gonna have to drive down from Bolivar and approve this, right? Okay. Right? But we didn't ask enough questions. And so every time that happens, you've got to have that as a learning moment for yourself to say, okay, next time, I'm gonna revisit the motivation every single time we're inside the property. Hey, are we still thinking you need to move by February 1st? Right? Oh, no, my landlord told me X, Y, Z, right? You still got to go back and revisit that motivation every single time you're in front of them.
Well, and we're constantly tweaking our searches. Bo is so good at this, where he will sit there and he'll look at all of his top buyers, and then we'll look at all of the inventory, and he's like, every single Monday, we will literally look at who's gonna go under contract this week. We were able to identify that every single week. And, you know, right now, we're just able to tweak our searches a little bit, like, you know, constantly asking people, did something change with your search? Is this school district now open? Did we open up a, you know, 3-bedroom instead of 4? You know, and just because we do the strategy session and I have this full sheet of exactly what they want and what their needs and wants are, it doesn't mean that it doesn't change, right? I always tell people, if you see something on the market that I didn't send you, please send it to me, because obviously I have something too tight, right? And I need to open something up. And oftentimes those parameters are just a small little adjustment, but you could be missing your mark. And how often, I think that one of the things, you know, he talked a lot about, like, being the expert and like all the different things that you should know about within your market, but how are we showing up as an agent? Because I think the number one thing that we've heard in the past year is that agents have no value, right? And I think that one of the things that I listened to the other day was that if you ask the public how much time a buyer agent works for them, they said 15 hours. Whenever they did this huge survey, it's actually 87 hours that an agent works for their buyer, right? And people don't know that. But I'm not an agent that's just gonna set you up on a search and hope that something gets sent to you and then you call me, right? I'm digging, I'm building shadow inventory. I'm going through, like, telling them all the things that you're doing to show value, right? And then that way they know that you're a great agent for them. So asking them a lot of questions, and if they start feeling like, well, I need to wait, or I need to, you know, this is all moving too fast, just asking them the questions to be the expert for them. They're listening to all the social media. I think the biggest reluctance that we've heard over the past year, especially, has been the interest rates. And so it's just making sure that that makes sense. And obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but Mr. Buyer, if we can get into this payment for the next year, are you comfortable with that? And then if interest rates go down, telling them what that process is so that they can make good decisions. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they want to know that they're making a good decision. And I think that oftentimes they just want to be heard. And if we can show them the path of them making a good decision and why it's a good decision for right now, we can get them over that hurdle.
So wrapping up right now, if I've got a buyer that I signed an agreement with for 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, right? They're slow, they're not reactive. They're just, I keep finding them great properties. They're not moving. What are you doing with that buyer?
I'm staying in touch with them, and I will literally say hey, listen, I don't want to drive you crazy. I want to make sure that I understand your home purchase process. If I found you the perfect property tomorrow, are you willing to write an offer on it? And if the answer is yes, then I know what their motivation actually is. If their answer is well, I don't know, obviously they've got a plan B, right? What is your plan B? And asking that question, because they've already figured that out. And if you can figure out if they have a plan B or plan B or plan C, but sometimes they're I have to buy a house. I really have to do this. And those are the people that are your hot people that you are just digging and calling and door knocking and all the other things.
Does anybody have any questions for Adam and Mark?
What is shadow inventory? I hear that all the time, but I don't.
Well, you're not allowed to say, I don't even know the word anymore.
Pocket listing?
Yeah, I didn't say it, so. that
So
one-
you have some right now, 5 or 6 sellers that are willing to sell, but they haven't put their house on the market yet, right?
Right. Yeah, okay.
I've got one, Rhett just brought me an offer on this morning.
Yeah.
700 grand.
So we built a database that,
Because Rhett asked me, what do you have available?
yeah,
Okay.
when we build the database, we don't just put it we don't put it in our brain and just not tell anybody about it. We actually put it on a spreadsheet so we can all see it, so we can see.
So I've got buyers that I'm just any agent right now and I'm looking for stuff. If I'm calling you, asking you about another property, I'm gonna slow that call down and say, hey, Mark, what else do you have coming up?
Sure, okay.
Right? And keeping a list of that to see if I can match an off market with a buyer that I have, and talk about showing value. When you're able to go take a buyer into an off market opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And show them something Zillow can't show them.
Right.
Anybody else? Yes, Lala.
There's a little guild for inventory sitting on the market a little bit, and you can only touch them, every 2 weeks or whatever. Here's the update. If the price and the condition and the location is great, but it's just not moving, what kind of follow-up do you do for those listings that just sit there? Although you don't really have a recommendation at the time.
Well, you have to have a recommendation, right? You're the expert, right? And usually it's going to be price. And if you're looking back at your CMA too far, if it's showing you that price is accurate and the house isn't moving, right? You're gonna have to tighten up that time frame and look at, 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months, and then go change. You literally on MLS, when you have pending and sold click, unclick those two and hit active. And see what shows up with those same parameters, and that's your competition right now. And you might have to go take time while to go through those houses. Call me and say, Adam, can I go preview 123 Main Street? Go walk through it and see how it compares to your house. That's great feedback to get back to your client. You can go one step farther and go grab your client and take them to look at it. Right? Doesn't cost you anything, right? It's great information for them, right? And it usually helps do the heavy lifting for you.
Thank you.
Can we give Adam and Carrie a round of applause?
One thing I was thinking while Carrie was talking, that it's a real life example for me. How many of you in this room have bought a house in the last year, yourself, your own personal house? I think it's so important you put yourself in that person's shoes. My husband and I found our dream home in Millwood. I was so excited. It was the right price. I would have moved that day. but it was a contingent offer and my house had to go on the market the very next day. I have a 5-year-old and 2 Frenchies. Do you think I was ready to put my house on the market the very next day? I was not. And so when Carrie was talking, it was an aha for me too, as we're talking to agents, to take our realtor glasses off and lift our eyes up and be in the framework and the mindset of that buyer. I thought that was such a good point, because I was thinking me and my Frenchies and my toddler weren't going anywhere in 48 hours. So that was a great moment. Thank you.
Does anyone have any ahas they want to share? Yeah, Jess?
I know that this is about, you know, real estate for real estate agents and stuff, but I think it applies to really any business that you're in that's sales related. I think the number one thing in any business is communication. And if you're not communicating, then how is your client, whatever kind of business you're in, supposed to know what's going on? And honesty, really. I mean, like, we have to break bad news to people a lot, just like you guys do. But you have to just break the news to them, and you can't be scared, I think, to communicate. And if you have to break bad news, get it over with and move on. So I mean, I think it can be related to any business, that communication and honesty. I mean, those are like the top 2 things that you need in any business related to sales.
And they say hard conversations, easy life, easy conversations, hard life. So being able to have that. So as we look into what we're going into next week, we have Drew Beatty and Susan Herron leading our next shift topics. And as we leave here today, I just want to kind of just, when we think about what we're gonna go into today, let's only focus on what we can control. So it's a circle of like, here we are, what are the things that we can control? What's the next circle of everything else that's going on in this world and the things that we can't control? And so as we go across potentially a big day today, I hope you all go and vote. My encouragement to you is just to bring a positive light to everybody that you see. Go out and do an act of kindness, show up for somebody that maybe they weren't expecting it, because I think if I opened my Facebook this morning, I was like, I don't want to be on this at all today, right? So it's supposed to be united we stand, right? And so as I think about Keller Williams and I think about our mission, vision, value, beliefs, and perspectives of seek first to understand, no win-win or no deal. So bring those perspectives, and how can you take the mindset, things that we learn at Keller Williams, and share that with everybody that may not have access to that, especially in a day like today. And so I hope that as you leave today, you feel encouraged, you feel empowered to go out into your business, you feel like you can have those hard conversations if needed, and yet you can also be that positive light that many others don't have the opportunity to be around. So
That's great.
anything else?
No, I thought it was.
Okay, well, thank you all so much. See you next week.